So during and after the 2016 election in the United States, the issue was raised that perhaps Russians were hacking into America's voting machines in order to change the results and benefit Donald Trump. And then on election night, the results certainly were not what people were expecting, and the Democrats and a lot of the media just could not believe that Donald Trump won the election, that people actually did vote for Donald Trump. And so the question arose, did Russians or others hack into American voting machines and do something to tamper with the results? Well, this will undoubtedly come as a shock to a lot of people, but voting in the United States is not done on the internet. As a matter of fact, the internet has almost nothing to do with the actual process of counting and tabulating votes. I know that will be a surprise to many people, but this idea of machines being hacked on a macro level scale is largely a myth. A voting machine, the optical reader kinds that are used in most places, and the same would be true of the old mechanical lever style, every kind of voting machine that is used in the United States is a self-contained unit. You might think of them as a bit more complex calculator, like this desktop calculator. This is a self-contained unit. It is not connected to the internet at all, and is not subject to anything that you can't do with the keyboard. You would actually have to open up the machine to manipulate it. And that's how voting machines are. Voting machines are only connected to AC power. They are not connected to the internet. They are not connected to the World Wide Web. And so the only way that anyone would be able to so-called hack a voting machine would be to actually open up the individual unit itself and mechanically manipulate the machine. That is impossible. It's impossible for secret agents to sneak around all over the United States and physically break into courthouses and these places and storage facilities where these machines are stolen and actually open up each machine and manipulate each machine. And that's what they would have to do in order to affect a result on a national level. The only thing that voting machines are connected to is AC power. Other than that, they're a self-contained unit, just like this calculator. AC power. And you ever wonder why power companies do not sell internet service? That's because power lines are a lot different than telephone lines and cable TV lines. You cannot run internet over power lines. And so that's why your local power company does not sell internet service, because the only thing you can distribute through power lines is electric power. And those are the only thing that voting machines are tied to, electric power, and otherwise they are self-contained units. Now I know that may be hard for some people to believe. A couple of years ago I was involved for a little while with Obamacare and involved in helping people sign up for Obamacare, and the plan was originally that people would go on the website and do everything there and sign up, except the website crashed and burned the first month or so, and even like 3 months into the process there were still major problems where you could not get people through on the website. And so I was one of the first to advocate, just filling out the paper applications and sending them in, and people were horrified at that prospect. They could not believe that, you'd fill out a paper application and somebody might have to wait a couple of weeks, because that is so foreign to this current generation that they just couldn't imagine anything like that. But that was the way that things were done in years past, and it worked, and there was no reason it shouldn't have worked this time. Now, I think what happened at this time was that you maybe had people at some of these incoming mail centers that actually threw some of the applications in the trash, because I know that clerks and people like that at various companies sometimes do throw things in the trash. When they do actually throw away work when nobody's looking, and that's how you explain a lot of things. But filling out paper applications and mail them in for credit applications and all sorts of reasons, that's the way that things were done in years past, and it worked most of the time very well for most people, as long as everyone did what they were supposed to do. So with all of these voting machines all over the United States. All of them self-contained units, none of them connected to the internet, none of them connected to each other, besides the fact that you'd have to open up each individual machine and hack the machine that way, and people who tried to do that would surely get caught breaking into some warehouse or something, especially if there were large numbers of people who were doing this, which would be exactly what would be required. The only actual way to hack these self-contained machines would be to do it probably during the manufacturing process where they were first being manufactured. But when the machines are manufactured, there's no way you can possibly know what you want that machine to do a year or two later. That's impossible. And so this idea that voting machines were hacked is largely a myth directed at unsuspecting people in a highly computerized generation where people believe that every activity of significance is somehow connected to the internet. It is not. And voting is not on the internet for just that reason, actually, because no way has ever been found to protect an internet-based voting system from hacking, and that's exactly the reason that you don't go online to register to vote, and it's exactly the reason that you send your votes over the internet, that when you cast your vote it isn't transmitted somewhere over the internet. Just think about it. If voting was on the internet, results would come in a lot faster, wouldn't they? I mean, you might know real fast who won an election if votes were counted and tabulated over the internet, but they are not. They are run through machines, each individual machine, one by one. They open up the display, and then there it is where the machine has calculated the vote totals, and it's a individualized, decentralized process. However, I did read of a little bit of evidence that, in spite of everything I've said, I did read of a little bit of evidence that there might have been some hacking in one Pennsylvania county, because a county in Pennsylvania completed their recount and Hillary Clinton picked up a vote. One vote. So you think, oh my God, somebody actually did hack in that case. So I don't know when somebody was able to break into that voting machine or exactly how they did it, but Hillary Clinton did pick up one vote in that county, so that surely must be evidence that somebody was hacking. No, actually I think it was just a simple error, probably. It may have been in some county where they still do hand counting most of the time. But when you think about it, what is likely to be more inaccurate, hand counting or machine counting? Well, as someone who has had issues with cash drawers in the past and cash registers and is not very good at counting money that accurately, I wouldn't trust hand count because I can see possibilities of people getting it wrong, and also the possibility that people might, throw some ballots in the garbage can when somebody wasn't looking. So I trust machine counts far more than I would trust a hand count. So the upshot of all of this is that Donald Trump actually did win the election. People actually did vote for him. There were no right-wing Martians voting illegally. There was no massive Russian hacking of the voting system, because the voting system does not work that way. All these machines are self-contained units that would have to be individually manipulated because they're not connected to anything other than AC power. And so there you have it. This idea that has been promoted by Jill Stein and some in the Clinton camp, it's just not even rational. You're talking about something that can't even happen. I mean, if it did happen, it'd be very scattered. It'd be a machine here and it'd be a machine there, and the differences in the vote totals are way more than you could achieve that way. And so there you have it, the basic truth on why the voting system in the United States is not internet-based, the voting machines are not connected to the internet, and the type of hacking that's been suggested at the macro level simply couldn't happen. And so now you know.